These guys are headed out. They have Mother's Day things to go do. I just want to say a special thanks for the fact that God has given us such a good worship team group. Corn Cobb, Ansel, and Dale's not here today, but you know, I was saying to someone earlier this morning, and I know I've said this before, but it continues to amaze me. We could be in a church of 5,000 people and not have people as gifted in worship.
Yeah.
And we thank you guys, and we appreciate you a lot. Love
I'm not going to preach. I just want to say thank you to everyone and every prayer that was lifted up for me. I felt it every day that I was there in the hospital. And I felt it the minute that I fell. And all the blood that I shed, I cannot believe. I just cannot believe. But anyway, I knew I would be back today. Thank you.
And she did bleed all over the room. We have a little special treat this morning. Frank shared with me a couple of weeks ago about a lady that was going to be out at the Deer Flat Methodist Church this last Thursday night. And she's going to bring some information about Muslims that was important for us to hear. And he wanted to be to that, but he was out of town. So Ed and Lynette graciously considered to go and attend this meeting and then bring back a report to us of the pertinent things that they feel like we need to know from this. So thank you, Frank, and thank you, Ed and Lynette. They're going to come and share a couple of things, and then we'll get into our Bible study time. But I'm hearing, and I know many of you are hearing this, and I'm hearing it from you, and I'm hearing it from many different sources. There either has already been, or there will soon be 3,000 Muslims that will come into the Boise area. They will be in Kuna area. Property has already been acquired. A mosque will be built. And this is what I'm hearing. I think it's a very good time for us to hear this report that we're going to hear. We need to pray about this situation, because I know a few days ago I heard in Washington State, I believe it was, that there's a conclave, or whatever you call it, a huge population of Muslims there, and the police have actually completely backed off, from what I heard, and Sharia law is in effect in the United States, in that state, in that place where these people live. And without some type of a change or an intervention, that will be exactly what happens out here. And this is getting serious. It is getting more serious by the week. And we need to hear this report. And I know we need to pray, but there may be some other things in this report that we might know of things that we'll be able to do. So thank you guys. I can come and you share now.
We were really happy to hear that Brigitte Gabriel, we were really happy to hear that Brigitte Gabriel was coming to this area. In case you don't know who she is, she's been on Fox many times, and she is a real activist against Muslim and Islam terrorism and activities. We have a book here. Here's her picture. Maybe some of you will recognize her. But just a little background on Brigitte.
Really?
I guess. Okay. She was born in Lebanon to parents that had been married for over 20 years, and she was an only child. And she lived a wonderful life for the first 10 years And Lebanon was considered the Eden of the Mideast. It was a beautiful place, very cultural. Many countries, people would go there for their universities. And then in 1974, the Islamic militants launched an attack on the Lebanese military base near her family home and destroyed her home and declared war on the Christians and started the massacre. Brigitte, who was 10 years old at the time, was injured by shrapnel in the attack. Their home fell on her. She was buried under all the rubble. And as she lay there, she could hear the terrorists crying out, Allah Akbar. Her parents started screaming out her name and digging through the rubble, and when they finally found her and drug her out, when she got to the hospital, she was barely alive. She was in the hospital for 2.5 months and had multiple surgeries. And when she got out, her family ended up living underground in a bomb shelter in an 8 by 10 foot room. And this went on for 7 years. In order to feed themselves, they would crawl out of this bomb shelter, crawl along the ground under sniper fire, digging up dandelions and other greens to eat and to sustain themselves. In order to get water, they would crawl through a ditch for hours under sniper fire for a distance that would normally take about 5 minutes to walk. And they would bring the water back, and her mother would take her stockings and sift the water through that just to get the debris and the mud and everything out of it to make it palatable. And then finally, they also lived in the mountains in the winter where it was very cold. And her father would go out and gather twigs and pour kerosene on the twigs. And they would light that at night to stay warm. But this was inside the shelter where there was no ventilation. So their rule was whoever woke up first would slap the other ones awake, because many times they had passed out from the carbon monoxide. And also when they went out to get water, each time one of them would go out, they would say their last goodbyes to each other and hug each other, because they never knew if they would see each other again. Finally, in 1989, after liberation, they moved to America. And one thing she wanted us to really understand, that whether it be Boko Haram or ISIS or Al-Qaeda, it didn't matter. It was all under the hood of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, we need to understand what the Muslim Brotherhood is and what they stand for. And they have published a book. And the page 1 of that book states, the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist development process, which is a cultural jihad process. The brothers must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad of eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believer, so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. The last page of that book lists 29 different organizations that they have, some of which are part of our government. One of them is the Islamic Society of North America, and they are now advisors to Obama about Middle East policies. The Muslim Student Association has more chapters in the universities than the Democrats or the Republicans. NAF is another one. It is the North American Islamic Front, and they own deeds to over 90% of the Islamic mosques in America. And finally, the IAP is the Islamic Association of Palestine, which later became CARE, and we've heard a lot about CARE on the news. It is the Council on American Islamic Relations. So with all that, she decided that they needed to find out what they are teaching in their mosques. And we need to understand that books are being provided by Saudi Arabia, which donates billions, that's billions of dollars, to setting up Islamic institutions, mosques, etc., around the world. In these mosques, they teach to hate us for our religion, to hate for Allah's sake, always oppose Him in every way, maintain a wall of resentment against them. It is taught that democracy is responsible for all the horrible wars of the 20th century. Names like democracy, justice, freedom, brotherhood, and equality cause all of the world's problems. It is their religious duty of every Muslim to impose the Islamic government on every country in the world. This religious duty is binding in principle, in law, and self-defense in every community, and has a sacred obligation of jihad. They must invade its western heartland and struggle to overcome it until all the world shouts by the name of the Prophet Muhammad and the teachings of Islam spread throughout the world. Only then will Muslims achieve their fundamental goal. All religion will be exclusively for Allah. We are being destroyed from within. But that isn't ISIS. This is just regular sabotage. As a side note, ISIS is building a $20 million entertainment center in Hollywood right now. Interestingly, ISIS is actually damaging to the Brotherhood agenda, because ISIS is now in the forefront of the news, and we hear about all the things that are taking on with ISIS, and it is bringing more of an awareness to America, and they would rather be quietly encroaching into our government and schools, and now that has made us become more aware of what they're doing. So it has become a problem for them, really. The biggest thing that really got me was the education. The Brotherhood and the Muslim belief has infiltrated our government and especially our schools. Within has been said, within 2 generations, you can literally change a nation. Since 1991, Saudi Arabia, with their oil money, pumped millions into our universities, setting up Middle East study departments, political study departments, and appointing Arab professors to teach our children that America is bad, and Israel is evil, and the Islamic world is the underdog. They used the Title VI, which was instituted by the government after World War II, in order to teach our children about foreign governments and foreign cultures, in order so they could be an asset to our country. This helps students to get into State Department jobs, diplomatic field, or CIA, or other fields such as that. It's a loophole that the Islamists use to pump millions of dollars into our universities. The King of Saudi Arabia gave $20 million to the University of Arkansas, $22 million to Harvard, $28.1 million to Georgetown, $5 million to MIT, and $1.5 million to Texas A&M. And other recipients include our University of Idaho. We pump the gas, and they pump the poison into the hearts and minds of our children. For the last 15 to 20 years, our students have been fed a steady diet of hate for our country. They are now our newsmen, our opinion shapers, and policy makers of our country. They decided to move into our schools in grades 6 through 12. They provided consultants to America's top publishers, such as McGraw-Hill, for social study and history books. They introduced a 3-week course on Islam to study and memorize and recite verses from the Quran, adopt Islamic names, go to mosques on field trips. For 6th and 7th graders, published by Interact, they write training programs for teachers. The course begins by saying, from the beginning, you and your classmates will become Muslims. You will be a member of a caravan. Dressing as a Muslim and trying to be involved will increase your learning and enjoyment. Finally, trying your best at all tasks will guarantee you an excellent grade and a more enjoyable time. They also have what they call wisdom cards. And these cards talk about jihad. Jihad is mentioned in the Quran 40 times, 36 of them as a holy war against the infidel in order to either kill them or subjugate them. Their students are being taught a jihad is a struggle by Muslims against oppression, invasion, and injustice. These are the words of Al-Qaeda. They always claim oppression, etc., and our children are being taught the talking points of our enemies, paid for by our tax dollars in our public schools. Hitler said, "Give me the children, and I will change society in 10 years." Another prayer the children are taught to recite is, "In the name of Allah, the compassionate and merciful, praise be to Allah, the Lord of creation, the compassionate, the merciful, King of Judgment Day. You alone we worship, you alone we pray for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have favored, not of those who have incurred your wrath, the Jews, nor of those who have gone astray, Christians and atheists." All of this has been woven throughout our textbooks. 22 questions out of the SOL test are about Islam and are needed to be correct in order to pass. If it weren't for 9/11 and ISIS, we wouldn't be paying attention to all what is happening. After 9/11, she started Act for America. It's a non-profit organization. It now has 300,000 members with 900 chapters. They have passed 37 bills in 19 states in the last 5 years, all relating to national security. In 2008, they launched a textbook study of over 38 textbooks nationwide. The report was titled Education or Indoctrination. Kids are being taught lies and they are being brainwashed. Act for America has mailed reports to 72,000 elected school board members in the U.S. Basically, they said either change it and tell the truth, or we'll get you kicked out and replace you with someone that cares. ACT has been able to pull books out of schools and force them to publish the truth. In Florida this year, they passed a bill that gave power back to the school districts to decide what books they buy, and took the power away from the School Board of Education of Florida. They're now taking this law nationwide. Texas and California are the states that publish their school textbooks, and they set the stage for the rest of the nation with these textbooks. Texas ACT members were so well organized, and they threw such a fit with the Texas School Board of Education that the publishers will not publish the next books unless approved by Act for America. Another example are bills they are passing are the ALAC, American Laws for American Courts, which means no foreign law will be allowed to be used in a courtroom in our state that is not compatible with the U.S. Constitution. That is why we need this law. That law has been passed in 9 states, some of them being Oklahoma, Louisiana, Tennessee, woohoo, my kids are there, Arizona, North Carolina, and others. So basically, there's a huge problem out there, but she is working feverishly in her activism to bring about laws that are taking this out of our schools and out of our government, and she's doing a fantastic job. Act for America is something to really think about, I believe, and I think it's a great solution to what's going on. But awareness is the first thing we need to be. Be aware of what's going on around you. Listen to your grandchildren. What things are they bringing home from school? Let's do what we can. I'm quite passionate about this, obviously. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
What's the name of the book?
Oh,
They Must Be Stopped. It's by Bridget Gabriel. And she's got 2 books out. This
the
is,
first one is, let me see if
I
I
don't
can.
remember, it's the first one.
Because They Hate is the first one, and then They Must Be Stopped.
And who's the publisher? Who wrote it?
I know we don't have a microphone.
I don't have one.
Oh, that metal Ed.
St. Martin's Press. press.
Right, you. It's gotta be you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick about the Muslim Brotherhood.
Get closer to the mic.
If I do that, it's gonna scream at me. I don't want it to do that. So anyway, Muslim Brotherhood, I wasn't aware of just what kind of problem it was until about maybe 2 years ago. But it started way back in World War II. Hitler had his biggest groups, his SS groups were Muslims, were of the Muslim Brotherhood. They were the nastiest ones. It started back then, it's been growing up to 500,000. Anyway, up to 500,000 in 1979, we supported them against the Soviets in Afghanistan.
Speak up, Ed.
Get closer. In 1989, their army pushed the Soviet Union out of Afghanistan. And one of the factors became Al-Qaeda. Now these guys have been around forever. And they're just infiltrating our government. We have Mohammed El-Abayri, Homeland Security Advisor. We have, I can't pronounce his name, Obama Advisor, founder of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. He has at least 6 to 8 Muslim Brotherhood people in his cabinet advising him. These aren't just regular, everyday Muslims, the poor little guys that's being, persecuted. And another thing that really irritates me too is you go on Google, you Google up ACT and Gabriel, and half the things on there are calling her and her organization a hate group. And then you go into the news, if you get news like I do from organizations, you see a Muslim with his foot on a little child's head and a knife about to behead that child simply because they're a Christian. And nobody's crying out saying that's a hate group. But they are, and it needs to be stopped. And like Jim brought up this deal in Kuna, it's a real deal. It's going through. People have tried to stop it, and the city council in Kuna said, hey, it's going through anyway. It's several hundred acres. They're going to have a cemetery out there. They've already been doing their cemetery rites here in other cemeteries. They don't use caskets. They wrap them in cotton. They don't embalm them. They bury them only 3 feet deep. And according to the state of Idaho that I've been trying to figure out, there aren't any laws against that. They're being perfectly legal in doing that. But this is America. They don't want to live as Americans. They don't want to be part of us. They want us to be part of them. And I don't care if it's a moderate Muslim. A moderate Muslim stands by and cheers when the radical Muslims behead Christians. That's the difference. If it's a Muslim who is not active in their church, reading their Quran, they don't know what's going on. But they're a Muslim just the same. It's just like people growing up in Christian churches. Oh, I'm a Christian, what it's about. The same thing with the Muslim. We need to understand what they are, what they're doing, where they're at, and how they're affecting our lives. So anyway, if you go out, actforamerica.org, you can find out a lot of information about them. And I would encourage all Christians to become a part of it. Either give money to it or join the organization and help get this stopped as best we can.
What was that again? SomethingAmerica.org. What was it?
It's actforamerica.org.
Act for America.